This is EKG Part 1. Now, in all honesty, we could spend several weeks just on EKGs alone, so this is barely scratching the surface. Just keep that in mind. So we're just going to start with some terminology, some basic terminology. When myocardial cells, which are heart cells, so when heart cells are at rest, they are said to be polarized. And so the interior of the cell is negative and the exterior of the cell is positive. So here's an example of a heart cell that is polarized. It is at rest. The interior is negative, the outside is positive. Then an electrical impulse comes, and we know that that electrical impulse originates from the SA node. It travels down, makes its way through the entire heart. But that electrical impulse, as it reaches each heart cell, each myocardial cell, the positive ions on the outside flow across the cell membrane into the interior. So now the interior of the cell is positive and the exterior is now negative. So now the cell is said to be depolarized. And a depolarized cell is what makes the heart contract. So here is an example or a drawing of a heart cell that is depolarized or contracted. Now, this movement of these ions in and out and back and forth, that electrical movement, that is the electricity that is picked up and recorded by an EKG machine. Now, a 12-lead EKG, that is a standard test that any doctor and every doctor orders. It's just a staple in any outpatient clinic or even a ER department anytime they order a 12-lead EKG. And this is just for informational purposes, just so you know that there are only 10 of those patches attached to the skin. Now those patches are called electrodes. There's only 10 of those patches attached to the skin. And from those 10 electrodes, they create 12 views of the heart. So that's why it's called a 12-lead EKG, even though there's only 10 patches attached, because it creates 12 views of the heart. So let's look at the patch placement. So there's one on the right extremity, left extremity, right lower extremity, left lower extremity, and then there's 6 placed on the anterior portion of the chest. So that is the patch placement, and those 10 patches create 12 views of the heart. Okay, so here are the actual 12 views of the heart. This diagram depicts that. And again, this is more so just for terminology purposes. I don't think you really have to memorize these terms, but just when talking correctly about EKGs, this is the terminology to use. There are 6 limb leads and 6 precordial leads. So again, the 6 limb leads plus the 6 precordial leads equals the 12 leads or 12 views of the heart. So when we're talking about leads here, we're talking about the views of the heart. And this picture demonstrates those. So first are the 3 standard, which is lead 1 here, lead 2 here, lead 3. Then there are 3 augmented limb leads, which is AVR, AVL, and AVF. Then there are 6 precordial leads, V1 through V6, and those are considered anterior leads, and they're placed, the leads, the view is here, V1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. So from this lecture, this is what's most important, is memorizing where these leads are. So again, lead 1, lead 2, lead 3, AVR, AVL, AVF, and then the 6 anterior leads. And then this information here is what's important to memorize. The inferior leads are 2, 3, and AVF, which corresponds with the right coronary artery. The left lateral leads are lead 1, AVL, V5, and V6, which correlates with the circumflex artery. The anterior leads are V2, V3, V4, which correlates with the left anterior descending artery, your LAD. And then your right-sided leads is V1 and sometimes AVR, and that correlates with your right coronary artery. So here's the way I go about practicing this. I just draw myself a little circle, and I put a little stick figure in here. And then this is how I practice memorizing these. So this is lead 1, this is lead 2, this is lead 3, this is AVR, this is AVL, and this is AVF. So those, so that's so this is showing you what view of the heart each lead is showing you. And then the V leads, the V1 is to the right of the patient, and then the rest are to the left, V2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. So you need to be able to draw that by memory. Then you have to know which leads are the inferior leads. So draw the word inferior. And those are 2, 3, and AVF. 2, 3, and AVF. So 2, 3, and AVF. Those are your inferior leads. Then you've got left lateral leads. Those are that is lead 1, AVL, V5, and V6. So 1, AVL, V5, and V6. Then you got your anterior leads, and that is your V2, V3, V4. V2, V3, V4. Then you have your right-sided leads, and that is V1 and sometimes AVR. So V1, AVR. So this is how you go about practicing this information, is again just taking a blank piece of paper, drawing your circle, drawing where the leads are, AV1, AV2, AV3, excuse me, lead 1, lead 2, lead 3, sorry about that, and then AVR, AVL, AVF, and then your V1 through V6 here. And then you need to be able to write out which leads are inferior, which leads are left lateral, which leads are anterior, which leads are right. Then you also need to know the artery that goes with it. So the inferior lead, that's going to be your right coronary artery. Your left lateral lead is going to be your circumflex. Your anterior lead is going to be your LAD. And your right-sided lead is going to be, again, your RCA. So this is how you practice that. Get out a blank piece of paper and be able to write all of this from memory.